Hello and welcome to a new episode of ClueCon Weekly. I'm your host, Jon Gray, and today I am honored to introduce Michelle Bakels, who's back for the second time on the podcast. Michelle, it's great to have you. If you want to give a little intro and talk about what it is that you kind of do over with Developer Health.
Thanks so much. Yeah, it's great to be back. I'm glad to get an invite back. My name is Michelle Bakels. I'm program director at G2I. And at G2I, I work on a few different things. But one of those things is going to be the main topic today, which is developer health, which is working on initiatives and creating resources to support the mental and physical health of software developers. And then another really big part of my job is organizing React Miami, which is a React software developers conference that we host every April in Miami.
Yeah, I see it all over LinkedIn and the social network. So you are doing a good job with making a wave in the community. But
Love that.
so what was kind of your motivation to start this? Were you did you experience some developer mentalities that were kind of negatively impacting you, and did you see just like an opportunity to help other people around the area, or what kind of sparked this?
Yeah, so it was absolutely sparked by our CEO, G2I, Gabe. I never really thought that this was something that anybody can work on.
Hmm.
So basically, Gabe Greenberg and we both live in South Florida, and we knew each other through the local developer community. And he personally, as a founder of a tech company himself, he dealt with years of chronic illness and pain that he had to learn how to overcome so that he could be a good leader and a good founder for his company.
Hmm.
Sort of in parallel, I had worked at a couple of different tech jobs where there were different circumstances that, well, let's just say the first one, um, yeah, I was working on a developer project that I really, really loved. But there were some interpersonal issues on the team that I just kind of kept, like it became clear that the company, like there wasn't going to be anything done about it. And I really loved the work. And so just kind of try to keep pushing down the stress, like kind of convincing myself it's okay. Like this work is incredible. So just try not to let that stuff bother you too much. And there's just like no ignoring things like that. Like everything catches up over time. And after quite a while, like a couple of years, I mysteriously started having these heart issues that I couldn't explain. And after a few months with cardiologists, they were like, yeah, this is your work causing this. Like, you need to remove yourself from this stress source. And so I went and worked for another company, and it actually got worse. The situation was worse, and started to have a bit of a um, kind of like a crisis where I was like, I don't know, I can't live, like I literally can't live like this.
Yeah.
I don't know what to do. And sort of around this time is when I met Gabe, and he shared his story with me. I shared my story with him. This is the time when we started working on React Miami together. I wasn't working for G2I yet, and he shared something with me where he was like, I want to be the first company that prioritizes the health of software developers, and that's what I'm working on. And I was like, like I've never heard this sentiment before in my life. Like I've never heard these words before. So I was like, do it. Like that's an amazing job. I'm waiting. And then I reached back out to him. I was leaving the company I was at. I reached back out to him and I was like, hey, are you looking for anybody to join your team? I really like, all the things that he had to say, and I'd love to join and work with him. I didn't think we would be working on developer health, but he was like, yeah, I want you to work on this very specific thing that doesn't really exist, and it'll be highly experimental. We'll see where it goes. And that's how we started on this.
I like that a lot. We have a lot to unpack with that story. But it is really crazy how much your stress can really physically affect your body. So it's unfortunate you had to go through that situation and then even the second time. But I bet it's nice that you kind of, I don't like saying the term eating your own dog food, but kind of sipping your own champagne
There you
as
go.
you're able to prevent yourself from burnout on your project that is exactly focused around that. So I
Yeah.
like that sentiment a lot. And, it's cool to draw attention to tech people, especially because we live kind of isolated lives. You imagine like the programmer in his basement who's like coding, drinking Mountain Dew. He's not out socializing or anything like that, and it kind of gets neglected. So I think that's really interesting and cool. So what have you kind of decided on, like the framework for this? I know you were saying it was experimental. Did you go through a couple iterations, or how does kind of the flow of the program work, and how can people get involved?
Yeah, so we went through a bunch of different ideas, and we kind of have like a few different things that we're working on, or that, like we started working on and then we're going to come back to. But probably, among all of our initiatives, the one that was one of the biggest was creating the developer health OS. This
Mm,
was just something that this is something that we worked on in the background kind of a lot of other initiatives that we were testing. And it's essentially an ebook that you can work through on your own. It's free, it's self-paced, and it goes through um, burnout recovery, burnout prevention, and then how to optimize your work so that you can still be productive while also taking care of yourself, and also how taking care of yourself makes you really more productive than if you're
mhm.
not. So that's probably the biggest thing that we worked on and that we landed on was working on this book, and it took us over a year to create this, and then we put it online for free, and we just keep trying to share that as much as we can.
Yeah. So in kind of that workbook, I stumbled upon cerebral calisthenics. Uh,
Yes.
what are what are those, or what's like an exercise that you like that maybe people can get rolling with, even today or while they're listening to this podcast?
Um, there's a few things. So I think that probably so cerebral calisthenics is part of the workbook companion to the OS. Our
Hmm.
editor, we had this great editor, Julie, who she was working on editing the content of the OS, and she's like, "This needs a workbook companion," and so that's what it is. Is it's kind of all of the exercises from inside the OS, kind of extracted and put into their own section to work through. But I think that um, probably it's so hard to say. Maybe one of the more important, exercises that I think is in the book is identifying your level of burnout. I think that when you're trying to improve anything, you can't improve it or get what you want if you're not honest about where you are right now. So,
Hmm.
I mentioned earlier that I would constantly try and convince myself like you're working on a once in a lifetime software application. this this will shape your career, this will shape your knowledge for the rest of your career. Don't let little interpersonal things bother you that much because you don't want to sacrifice a bigger value for like these things. And so I that's an example of lying to yourself where you're
Yeah.
not being honest about how much this is affecting you. And so you can't make improvements to your life if you're not being real about what's happening. So I think that everything begins with, not trying to convince yourself that everything's okay or that this is worth it, all of those things. Because you're gonna have to come up with a plan to make things better and to help yourself, and how do you know where to go if you don't know where you are?
Hmm.
And it can be a tough moment of reflection, and there can be some hard truths where you're like, "Oh, part of my recovery plan is leaving my job. There's no hope here for finding the kind of workplace that is going to be healthy to work in." So that can be really, really hard, to
Hmm.
confront, but I think this is the most important section of the book.
No, that reflection is really valuable. I have a mindful practice of trying to just go back into, how I define myself through like different stories and kind of just changing the narrative a little bit, in order to not prevent myself from, reaching that next level of what you are able to achieve. And we have these internal dialogues in our head all the time, that are just, looking at us trying to say bad things, but being able to not necessarily shut them out, but address them is kind of what it seems like your approach to some of this is. And I like the being realistic, because I am not realistic with myself at all. So definitely something that everyone can kind of work on. But I'm curious what success stories you kind of have. I assume you get to talk to a lot of people. This is a very social kind of community that you have built around you. Have you been able to talk to people and see your practice kind of in work, and see someone who's able to become a better version of themselves, or kind of just less stressed, more zen, and happier?
Yeah, there are a bunch of really, interesting stories. Um, I would say for the OS, sometimes I don't always hear about it because it's just online and it's not
Mhm.
something that I don't know everybody who reads it, but I do get DMs every now and then, people that are like, "I really needed to read this, like, I needed to hear this," and I'm glad that there's somebody thinking about it, looking at it, and kinda supports this idea that, you we can I think there's, like internally and externally, there's this, like, idea that developers already have it so good, like, we get paid well, we get to work from home, we get to use great equipment, all this stuff, and so we shouldn't complain about anything, and so that makes it really hard to talk about sometimes the things that are really stressful because it sounds almost like you're spoiled, but I think just having this space where people can be like, "See, I'm not being spoiled, I'm not being a complainer, like, this is I'm not alone in this,
Yeah,
and just feeling like there are people who can, like, validate you, I think has been really good. Getting those DMs is always really nice.
yeah.
We had a different initiative where we could see kind of, like, success stories really directly. There was a time when we had like a chunk of money that we set aside for what we called the Developer Health Fund. It's something that we have on pause now, but we want to bring it back. But the Developer Health Fund was an amount of money that we set aside to just give to developers that um, needed some sort of health service or support. That could be like help paying for a surgery, that could be help paying for therapy. It didn't really matter what it was, but for context, G2I is a company, we work with a lot of contractors. Contractor developers typically don't have benefits through their jobs. So a lot of times, like they don't have things like PTO, they don't have health insurance. So they have to pay for everything out of their own pocket. So sometimes that makes it really hard to get um, like services that you need, like support that you need if you're sick. There were people who we gave money to from the Developer Health Fund that just used it to take time off because they had a family and they felt too guilty taking time off and they don't get PTO, and so they were just constantly contract to contract. And if they got some money from the Developer Health Fund, they could take like the first break in years. There are also people like in different countries that have different kind of health services, in their countries that their surgeries are not expensive, but it's expensive in that context, and they needed a little bit of help paying for that. We were able to, like, help people get some surgeries that they needed. So there's, like, a whole range. We helped pay for some therapy for some developers. So that was a great time when we were working on that fund um to help, yeah, just help people all over the world, really. We were we were working with developers all over the world, helping them. That was really a
Mhm.
great time.
No, that is really cool, and you get to just really change people's lives. Not only just with that specific situation, but as you kind of mentioned, how much things can kind of roll over to different aspects of your life, and it really affects not only your work, but your health, your relationships, and everything needs to be at a good equilibrium. So being able to just take that large, huge problem, that so many of these people are experiencing. I can't imagine being in those shoes, but I bet it's really cool. Like, those YouTube videos where people give someone $1 million and it changes their life. That's
Yeah.
basically what you guys are doing, because it's awesome. And yeah, especially like-minded people, people in the tech world who you kind of experience the same things, but they don't get the same benefits or leisures that we kind of have, and we're really taking them for granted now that you're mentioning those.
Yeah. Yeah. It was a great project for sure.
hmm well, on community, how does that kind of play into the entire developer health world? I know you're very avid in React Miami, as we kind of mentioned before, and some of the other ones. Do you sense some camaraderie that helps benefit people a little bit more? Or how does community kind of play a role in what you do personally, or kind of in the world?
Yeah, community for us is like it's foundational almost like with Gabe and I, because it's like really all we know. We, d- like we like live in community, we serve community, like we design programs for community even before we worked together. So for me, ever since I started learning how to code, I immediately started teaching a girls who code club at the local library, just whatever I was learning. And from there, I went on to volunteer and organize meetups and all kinds of dev events. And eventually it led to React Miami. But community has been a consistent thread through my life just because it's probably the single most important thing that you can invest your time in. And for Gabe, likewise, um, community for him was really, really important because when he got sick and he needed, some of his first like surgeries or treatments, um, he couldn't afford them, and so he started a GoFundMe, or his wife started a GoFundMe for him, and he shared it on Twitter, and it was picked up by Dan Abramov, who used to be on the React core team and is really known for his work on React,
hmm
and helped share it around, and, somewhere around $20,000 was raised for him to help get him his treatment, which changed his life and allowed him to continue to work. Without it, he wouldn't have been able to. So, so ever since then, he's been really involved, in the React community too. Um, and so it's just something that we share, like the importance of community, like the genuine, real importance of community is something that we both value really highly. And so it's kind of the only approach that we really know, to be honest, to things. Like just try and create things of value and share it with people. Try and create things that will help people's lives. Like don't be extractive. Don't show up to community with something to sell without offering to help somebody in return or be there. I don't maybe like this might be a bit controversial or incendiary, but like community is a business practice now. It kind of gets under my skin. I think it's really reductive to the value of community for there to be like KPIs and metrics tied to it. We don't measure things. Like we just try and create good things. And if people like them, then we keep doing that. And if they don't, then we stop. We
Yeah.
change what we're doing. We're just trying to be like helpful in this space. So that's what community is for us.
Yeah. And I like the point that you mentioned about KPIs. At SignalWire, we do a lot of events, road shows, pop ups, and those kinds of things. But the amount of value that you get that you can't write down and quantify is indescribable. And to be able to kind of see those people build the projects, have familiar faces. And it was also a great story that you shared on the GoFundMe, because there's so much thankless work that goes into these projects that we use every single day. I mean, we download a React package, and we're able to use these methods, but it's usually some guy in the middle of wherever, who is thanklessly supporting these things, or developing, creating, and innovating to make our lives a lot easier. So that's awesome that they're able to kind of give back. And on kind of a positive note, how do you see the future of developer health, kind of OS, or really just the general community and tech world right now? Like, do you see that this is, really going to be impacting a lot of different companies? Do you see it incorporating and bleeding into other aspects of work, or what's the future looking like for you, Michelle?
So I think that the OS is a resource available online. I hope it, can be available to people and help people. And if it grows, I hope it grows so that it's just, something that people really do find valuable and helps them in their lives. Um, as far as developer health in general, I don't know if that's the term that everyone's gonna be using. I think it's kind of catching on.
Mhm.
I see people use it, like, outside of G2I, and I'm like, "Oh, wait, yeah, it's creeping
Yeah,
into the vernacular," like,
exactly.
but
Starting a
but
trend.
like, I think there is a trend towards health. Um, I think developers are, like, they're really good about, like, kind of living data-driven lives and sort of being interested in biohacking and stuff, and so when I think that there's so much information out there that shows that, yeah, there's this kind of, like, stereotype or archetype of, like, a developer founder that's, like, not sleeping and grinding, and, like, if you're sleeping, someone else is getting ahead of you, like, we can
Yeah,
see with a lot of science that that's a lie, and that if you're sleeping, you're probably gonna have a stronger advantage, you're gonna work faster, you're gonna have a clearer mind, you're gonna make less mistakes, you're gonna have more energy, like, working tired is pointless, like, it's pales into comparison working when you're well rested, and so there's this moment happening right now with developers where everybody's starting to buy an 8 sleep, I have one, um, people are, like, sharing their gym regimens, the diets that they're trying out, like, why they're landing on certain diets, like, sharing nutrition. I think the tide is starting to change, like, it's shifting, and we also have role models in our space now that are very health conscious. I mean, Brian Johnson is sort of like the meme, "Don't die," but at the same time, like, you have people like Levels, who exemplifies indie hacking, and DHH, who are like, is prolific in his founder journey and developer journey, that are out on Twitter, even in the last couple of days, talking about how important it is to go to the gym, to work out, to eat well, and so I think having good role models in the space is gonna be a huge game changer. Like, all of these young founders and developers coming up are gonna see these, like, titans, giants of our industry advocating for taking care of yourself, and I think
yeah.
that we're starting to see a healthy shift.
I love your depiction of the future. I think that is awesome. And I also love what you mentioned about sleep because I'm big on siestas, trying to get Signal Wire to incorporate siesta time because a clean, fresh, well rested mind is one that works so much better than when you just are groggy, stressed, when you don't sleep. And that's so common in our industry specifically. You have people who will be coding all night, overnight, and it's hard to keep up with them. But it's not a race that you'll ever win. You'll always be trying to catch up to the next person, and so on. But
Right.
what question have I not asked you, Michelle? What else is there?
I'm not quite sure. I think we hit a lot of.
Awesome. No, and I think this has been fantastic. I appreciate your work so much. You are really making it a better world for all of us in this industry. So thank you so much, Michelle, and I appreciate you coming on.
Thank you, I appreciate it.